Well, folks, we are finally here. The Legend of Korra, Book 4, Season Finale and Series Finale. I am so freaking ready to lock back in these past 2 episodes. I know I was saying in episode 11 and 12, this finale honestly kind of feels like a 3-part finale here with the final 3 episodes. You know, the build-up, the anticipation, all of it culminating now. And it's just flown by. Holy frick, like we just watched 45 minutes worth of this show or whatever, but it feels like it's only been 10 minutes. It's gone by so freaking fast. That's why I was so like confused about some of the pacing and whatnot earlier in this, you know, season. Not that I was like opposed to it by any means, but it's like suddenly, holy frick, the finale is just like coming in hot. Just freaking fire and flames all around. And so here we are. And here we go. Episode 13. The Last Stand. And I'm gonna freaking cry. Ah! Oh my god. She's just getting more rageful by the second. Does she know that they got in?
Initiate lockdown. Find the Avatar and whoever else is with her.
Okay, she does know that they got in.
I'm going after Kuvira.
Are you sure? When you fought Kuvira before.
I know.
Yeah, no thanks to you, Sue.
Not this time.
Holy! Those poor vines. Oh, I have so many chills already and it only just freaking started.
Disable the weapon.
There goes all the reserves. Oh. Okay.
Nice work. I can feel someone metal bending inside the arm. The weapon's useless now.
Good. Uh-oh. Hold on. Oh, they just got yeeted. Oh. Oh, thank God they were strapped in. Oh. Get hurt! Ow! Ouch! You're alright, you're alright. Everybody is fighting for their freaking life right now. What?
The only thing I know about these vines is that if you mess around with them too much, they explode. Get those engineers out of here. I have an idea. I'm gonna zap these vines with some electricity. This isn't the time to prove how awesome you are. I already know how awesome you are. But for the record, I do not approve. Just get out as soon as you can. Promise. I love you.
I'm already crying.
Now go.
Holy freaking boss mode! Okay, now run. Go, go, go! Ow, ow, ow! Oh, frick. Oh, great. Just literally got electrocuted. Ow! The score! The orchestra showed up! Oh, God. Oh. Get him, grab him! Oh god. Oh my Jesus. Holy frick, Mako, you frickin' beast. Like, of course she's there helping frickin' Kuvira out of the frickin' rubble. Shouldn't have helped her out. Yeah, she's got that Azula hair now. She's looking a mess.
Please stop this madness. Come and get me.
No. It's a trap. It's a trap. Oh, freaking frick.
Now it's over.
Gosh darn it. Maybe the spirit world will actually do something. Eee. Yeah, you crazy? Please, of course. Korra, you're too good for this world. Oh my god.
A new spirit portal.
Oh.
Spread out and find Kuvira.
Did they disappear into the new spirit realm?
Korra!
They're in a spirit void, aren't they? You don't deserve Korra's frickin' kindness.
We're okay, but we're in the spirit world. Why would you save my life? I see a lot of myself in you. We're both fierce and determined to succeed. You brought this on yourself. Messing with the spirit vines, acting like a dictator over your people. You were gone. I had to do something. I was cast aside by my own parents like I meant nothing. How could I just stand by and watch the same thing happen to my nation? You wanted to create a place where you and your people would never be vulnerable again.
Well, they came back.
And so is Korra.
And of course she's carrying Kuvira on her frickin' shoulder.
Her power is beyond anything I could ever hope to achieve. I'll accept whatever punishment the world sees fit.
You're going to answer for everything you've done.
Yes. Thank God, justice.
Out of the destruction, love did bloom. True love is a fickle creature. Even the longest of long shots can have a chance at happiness. Do you, Sir Nic Blackstone Barrack, take the Lady Julie Moon to be your lawfully wedded wife? Will you promise to treat her not as your assistant, but as your honored and cherished partner? Do the thing.
Oh.
Good to see you, Prince Wu. Or should I say King
Her
Wu?
outfit.
I was actually thinking of stepping down as king and getting rid of the monarchy altogether. If the states were independent and had elected leaders, like the United Republic.
That's actually pretty wise and mature of you.
But for now, the dance floor calls.
I cannot believe he turned things around.
The words thank you don't feel big enough for what you did.
I'll follow you into battle no matter how crazy things get.
They really are better as friends.
You've transformed the world more in a few years than most avatars did during their lifetimes. You don't know how happy I am to hear you so full of hope again.
I know I was in a pretty dark place after I was poisoned. I needed to understand what true suffering was, so I could become more compassionate to others.
They both look so beautiful, their dresses.
I don't think I could have handled losing you and my father in the same day. I'm just glad I was able to forgive him. I could use a vacation.
Let's go on a vacation, just the two of us. Anywhere you want.
I've always wanted to see what the spirit world's like.
That was so sweet. Let me just watch that again. Oh, I'm gonna cry. I say, as I already am. Oh my god. That's all I could have asked for. I just want Korra to be happy. Oh, that was really beautiful. Her freaking growth just... I knew I was gonna be emo. Maybe that's why I prolonged this for as long as I did, because I knew I was gonna be emotional, because the finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender makes me emotional. Like, I just want them to be happy. They just deserve to live good lives. They just deserve friendship and happiness. Where Korra started this season, and I just could never get over the fact that she exiled herself the way she did. I know she had so much personal growth to undergo, and that she didn't want to feel like she was using her friends as a crutch per se, but she already was using other crutches. She was kind of deflecting all of her just pain and fear, and like she was explaining to Kuvira, her lack of this control that she felt she had been robbed of after everything that Zahir had put her through. But at the end of the day, so much of what I loved about this show is the fact that she has such strong, incredible relationships, and all of her friends are amazing goats in their own right. And so, especially seeing her start off alone this season, that was just so painful. I hated that. I understood why she willingly was putting herself through that, but I just I never would have wanted that for her. And I know that she eventually had to grow through that, but so much of what has made her strong is all of her relationships and all of her mentors and the people in her life who have her back. And so just seeing this end here with her and Asami to go from where this season in particular started, or more so rather where season 3 ended here, I was in the same emotional state. I was equally sobbing my eyes out for different reasons, but also, having that kind of lingering pain for Korra, because you knew she was in pain. That season ended with a sense of hope for the Air Nation, yes, but you knew that Korra was still very much in shambles and just so broken, couldn't hold it together. That's so much of what her burden is. She has to bear the weight, and be the first person to step up, be the front lines, bear the weight of, the world's conflicts to maintain that balance. And she absorbs so much of that and just has to shoulder it. But the book 3 finale was evidence that she couldn't. She's human too. She is so young, and she just couldn't. And so to see where book 4 here began, of her, her journey on her own, it just broke my heart so much to see her go through that, because she had such an incredible growth from book 2. Honestly, in hindsight, I know this sounds crazy because I feel like people do not look favorably upon book 2. Yes, Korra was a little bit insufferable in book 2, but she was going through her phases. She has had such an arc, and each season has offered more transformation from her. And so book 2, I don't know, I still look back on that honestly as one of my favorite seasons of this show. They were all special in their own way here, and in hindsight this is interesting because for Aang's journey, as I have said before in these Korra reactions, Fire Lord Ozai was always the biggest fish, and that's kind of what everything was always building towards for his journey. And so that culminated, that confrontation, that final battle with Ozai just feels like this crazy Armageddon, and it's this huge moment. Whereas something felt a little bit different for this show here, purely because it's not like Kuvira was a threat from the start. But, she, I guess, perhaps, as we learned in the end there, during their brief confrontation in the spirit world, her and Korra, we learned maybe that she is just kind of a vessel for Korra's her larger problem, which is always going to be that she is always going to have to learn and grow and evolve, and she will never get to just lead a normal life. She will always have this uphill battle that is self-induced. So much of what her journey was, she had trials and tribulations, yes, but she had to navigate them and come into her own, and yes, take guidance from external sources, but at the end of the day, she had to learn to come into her own self-confidence and her own self-worth, and just kind of reconcile with not only her power and what she's capable of, but the responsibility that comes with that, and the fact that she will make mistakes along the way, but has to evolve at the end of the day, and she'll always be growing, So here I was during this finale. It felt maybe not as, I don't want to say less impactful in a sense than the Avatar: The Last Airbender finale, which, I'm sorry, to this day just remains one of the most perfect pieces of television media of all time, till the end of time. Nothing, I don't think, will ever top that. And so in a way, this felt a little bit different just because it wasn't like Kuvira was this kind of overarching villain throughout the entirety of Korra's career. Like everything was working towards this, the way it feels for Aang with Ozai in Avatar. Everything had been building up to that, versus Kuvira, I think, as Korra admits, I see so much of myself in you. We're more like than you might think that we are, and we have the same vices that we have to be stronger than, and learn from and overcome. And so perhaps that was, what made Kuvira unique as a villain here for the final season of the show. That's why I'm curious if this was meant to be, if they knew that book 4 here was going to be the finale. If it is, that it was a beautiful freaking moment there. That ending freaking brought me to tears, because that's all I want for Korra, is just for her to be freaking happy, especially before starting this show. And since I've started it, as I've dabbled more in the Legend of Korra fandom, just to see what other people have to say and others, commentary on this show, it's been no secret that a lot of people don't like Korra for whatever the reason may be. And I even went into this show a little bit knowing that backstory and knowing that people maybe prefer Aang over Korra, or that people just didn't like Korra or something about her behavior or attitude. But I never felt any of that during this show. She had so much, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not opposed to just character growth. I don't know. The writing isn't afraid to totally put, the protagonist's flaws on the table for them to have to assess and grow from. That was so much of what this show was. I do kind of wish maybe that we had gotten that explanation from Kuvira sooner. Like, okay, so many of you guys were like, hear me out about her, and there I was until the last second being like, I'm listening, but what am I supposed to hear you out about? Like, what is her deal? I think it would have been a little bit better to have more of her backstory before going and learning it right at the tail end of the finale, when all the damage has already been done. I like when you're able to, like, I don't know, I don't want to say sympathize with the villain, but like, I prefer a multifaceted villain that would have some sort of just explanation, to like just knowing a little bit more about what their freaking motive is, why she was so steadfast, crazed, so thirsty for control. I think I just would have preferred if they had infused that into the story a little bit earlier rather than after, her rampage had come to an end. Like, I feel like every other villain in this show, we are privy to some of their backstory prior to their final confrontation with Korra and whatnot. So I kind of was just hoping for that a little bit more, just because I like having that element of, you can at least maybe empathize with where they're coming from, or you understand why they are doing the things that they are doing. Whereas Kuvira, this entire time, yes, we had little bits of elements of it, understanding that she's trying to fill this role that Sue was refusing to, assume this kind of position of power for, the Earth Kingdom and whatnot. And so Kuvira took that upon herself. Nothing that we knew about her previously was enough for me to I just wish we had gotten that a little bit earlier. They saved it for the literal very end when it was already over, and I knew that Korra had already won. Like, I don't know, that's just a personal preference, but it is interesting to see there in their final moments, Korra honestly looking in a mirror, as we saw when she and Kuvira first were being transported into the spirit realm. She saw herself and then she saw Kuvira reflected. So I guess I never really made those connections throughout the season. I was so fixated on trying to dissect, like, what are Kuvira's intentions? What are her motivations? What the frick is she doing here? Versus actually trying to maybe understand the correlations between, her and Korra. This is all just me nitpicking. I had chills the entirety of these last 3 episodes. Holy frick. The conductor, the maestro, the orchestra, everybody, the rent was fricking due for Asami to have happiness as well. It is very interesting that the early season of this show, book 1, is this kind of love triangle between Korra and the brothers. And that at the end of it all, she goes off with Asami, which I loved, because I think Asami was, as we saw, she was the only person Korra was actually willing to, like, confide in and write to. And I think it's because Asami offers different, she's not a fellow bender as well. She always brought different things, her different strengths to the table that offered this great new element to their friend group. And so I think she was always this kind of just a different, more relatable voice maybe for Korra in a way. I don't know, but she was obviously more willing to confide in her, and they had this awesome, friendship that blossomed. I like that, you know, they didn't shy away from introducing Asami the way that they did in the series initially as this kind of competition for Korra. And we know that they have a bit of a rocky, you know, there is that kind of like, you know, feisty energy between them early on in earlier seasons, but that it, you know, culminates here with Asami at the end of the day is actually, you know, a great voice for Korra. She's actually like a very calming, you know, grounding presence for her, and she deserves happiness too. She's been put through the frickin' ringer as well. They all deserve happiness. They all deserve great lives. Can I frickin' tell y'all something now? Oh my god, I can finally frickin' say this because I'm no longer at risk of fricking jinxing it. When I tell you I have spent the entirety of this mother fricking show worried on the edge of my seat that Tenzin was going to die from the moment we met him. It's like, oh, this is Aang's lineage, this is Aang's bloodline. Toast. Of course, because, you know, there's always got to be some sort of tragic element, and so I was like, it's gonna be him. Oh my god, don't get too attached to him. Tenzin's eventually gonna die. He's her mentor. Of course he's gonna freaking die. And there I was telling myself, don't get too attached to this character because he's surely gonna be toast. He's gonna die in some tragic fashion, and it's gonna be so god-awful and tragic because he's Aang's son, and oh my god, he's one of the only few airbenders left in the world. Oh my god. In my efforts to resist, he just continued to become my favorite freaking character, and so this whole freaking time, that's why I was in shambles. That's why I was a blubbering mess in book 3 when I thought that Zahir and the Red Lotus were gonna freaking take out Tenzin. Oh my god, y'all, that was my worst nightmare realized. And so when it didn't happen in book 3, I was like, surely book 4, like, baby, no, we've made it to the end. Like, can Tenzin just get out alive? Can my freaking favorite mentor just survive? And holy frick, he did. Oh my god, I've held on to that the entire time we have been watching this mother frickin' show, and I cannot actually believe, I cannot tell you how good it feels to finally be able to share that we made it through this frickin' show, and the one person I thought was gonna die didn't. Nobody died. This was great, other than Asami's father, but nobody, you know, that we were too attached to. No shade to Asami's father. I'm so sad that this is over because I feel like there could be so much. I mean, similarly for Aang, I feel like, you know, I think the ending honestly is more so really puts a bow on things for Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, that really was the finale of what that show had been building towards. In hindsight here, I think it's a little bit more evident that the creators weren't rocking with the knowledge each season that they were going to be able to continue the story, so they had to keep, you know, reinventing new arcs, new antagonists and conflict for Korra to have to face. But to their credit, each time they did, like I was saying it here, they raised the stakes to this world-ending place where I genuinely always thought that there was just no hope, and they weren't afraid to explore that and really dial it up to the point of, you know, no return, as we saw in book 2 when her connection to all of her past lives is severed. You know, the show wasn't afraid to really raise it up, and even to the point where Korra gets so beat down that she is almost permanently scarred in a way and has to, you know, spend the final season, you know, rebuilding herself back up. So I applaud them for that. In hindsight, though, I do think it is more evident that they didn't know that they were going to be able to continue the story on. So maybe that's why it feels like Avatar, you know, for Aang's story, that finale very much felt like the completion of what that whole show had been working towards. Whereas here, you know, because Korra had a different foe each season, you know, 4 different kind of main conflicts that she was always battling, jumping from one to the next, you know, she could never get a freaking break. It almost doesn't feel like it has to be the end here. That's why I'm like, did they know this was going to be the final season? I think so much of the moral of this show is that Korra herself is always just learning, always growing, constantly, and I just love that they didn't shy away from leaning into some of her flaws, leaning into some of her, you know, like I said, more insufferable, you know, attitude, but she has to learn a lesson, and she grows and she becomes, you know, stronger and more grounded. So yet she is her own biggest critic, and that was obviously the crux of this season. But to see her just accept that and go forth knowing that she doesn't have to be perfect, and she might never be perfect, but look at what you've already achieved and what you'll continue to accomplish. You know, this almost feels like open-ended. You know, I would love to see more, but alas. All that said, yes, there might have been a different sense of, you know, the continuity that that was the overall arc for Aang in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And yes, even though this season I think had more of a kind of blank slate and a start and finish, and then kind of a new start and a new, conflict for Korra in each book here, I do think they all successfully have a different vibe to them. They are all unique. And I can't believe just in general that it took me so long to just watch this series. Like, what was wrong with me? But I truly have been grateful to expand out here and to meet this awesome, Legend of Korra fan base that exists out there, and hear from you guys and see that there are people there who love this show. Like I said, I feel like I had only ever heard things from people criticizing this show, or, the comparisons to Avatar. Of course, that's bound to be inevitable, but I'm just so grateful to you guys if you watched along and for sharing your opinions and whatnot. I can't believe it's over. I'm actually really freaking sad right now. I guess we have to just wait until the next animated Avatar Studios production comes out. No, isn't there one in the pipeline? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are doing so well, as always. And I always hate this whenever we finish out a series. I'll see you again soon, just not for Korra. Bye, guys.